Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today we're going to be doing a vertical 10-gallon conversion tank for my tailless whip scorpion. Her name is Cindy, short for Cinderella. But she was pretty small when I got her, and she was just in your standard, like here, 10-gallon aquarium, regular horizontal setup with the mesh screen top. But now she's gotten bigger, she's molted a couple times, and I want to just give her some more vertical space. I mean, they're pretty much always climbing. I've rarely ever seen her down on the bottom of her tank. She utilizes the entire tank. I have many structures and things, slate rock for her to climb on, but she's always climbing around and utilizing the space. I've seen her on the top. So yeah, I just wanted to get one of these 10-gallon conversion lids to make it a front opening tank. I know a lot of people have seen them. Got this one here from I Heart Geckos. I know a lot of people use this one. I kind of researched some of the options. There's really only a couple. This was the most accessible, and I found it to be the cheapest off their website directly. So it was about 30 bucks, not bad. For the background, I like to just do kind of your simple cork bark backgrounds. That's what I like. It's simplistic. I don't ever do the spray foam. That's just not what I'm into doing. I get bulk boxes of these cork tiles, and they come in all different thicknesses. Like you see, just different thicknesses, different styles, and some of the pieces are thin. Some are actually like half an inch thick, and you get totally different looks and different features on the different pieces. And I like to just actually break those tiles up that they come in because they all have variants. Break them up, just kind of naturally break them or break them as you need for different pieces. And I piece them together myself to make my background. And I don't know, that's what's in this tank here. And it looks quite good once it's all come together. Like you puzzle piece all the different textures and different thicknesses of the cork bark. It doesn't just look like an ugly slate piece just put into the back, which I mean, they're better than nothing, but this just looks more natural. It gives a little more realism, in my opinion, and it's still a super simple background. You just use the, aquarium safe silicone. I use the GE all purpose, the clear silicone number 1, which is safe. It's 100% silicone, 100% waterproof. This is safe for aquariums. I've used it for years, different jobs. It never had a problem. And it's cheap. Get yourself a pair of gloves before you spread the silicone in. I like to spread just an even, solid layer of the silicone. I found that when you try to just beat it up per piece along the piece and I don't know, good and bad from that. But if you just spread an even layer across the entire back, you're going to have contact points for sure on every piece, no matter how rigid or different the pieces are. Because sometimes you can bead silicone in here and it's only going to touch and bond to the glass in like 2 spots where that one piece was the lowest. So then you just wasted all this internal silicone that just dries there in a thick bead. Where if it's a thin layer on the glass covering the whole glass section, it's going to have its contact points, and they're all going to have contact points for sure. But then you can also sprinkle in your soil mix that you want over all that to fill in any of the holes and gaps, and it looks nice and solid. Before you do all this, make sure to clean out the tank really well. This tank is an old used tank I've had, so it's got some staining on the top and bottom, but I don't care because those are now going to be the top and bottom. So I'm never going to see through those parts. It's going to be the sides and the front that are the new viewing windows. And I use the just typical distilled white vinegar, like a half and half solution with water to wipe it all out really good. You can use steel wool if you want. It shouldn't scratch the glass. I use it. It doesn't ever, I don't have problems. I mean, I'm not like grinding it in, but it does a great job of cleaning everything up really well. Dry it all out. Should be good to go. So just wanted to show some of the pieces that I was talking about. I mean, you can get such different looks with some of these backgrounds. I mean, this is a much deeper textured bark. You know, it's a thicker piece. And then, you know, you've got that darker, not as deep root, but much thinner. And then, I mean, you've got this light piece. It's come with, you know, mosses and different lichen buildup and things that are already on them, which are pretty cool. This is a nice little piece, a thicker one, but it's just a small corner. But this was a full slate. I mean, every one of these came off of those full, like 15 inches by 12-inch squares that you can get, the little cork bark tiles. But yeah, and then you just break them up as you need and get yourself whatever pieces you want to puzzle in. It works pretty good. So here I've got a lot of it put in already. My phone wasn't recording when I meant to be showing you most of this. My bad. Put it all in, good amount. I rub it everywhere so there's a solid just base on the entire glass, and I put a little more in, maybe just random beads so there's enough. But as I put these pieces in, I kind of just see what I like, the feel of how it looks. You know, I usually kind of go with those nice factory cut edges for the corners. They work great to keep the corner nice, but I like more of the broken natural look in the middle. I don't want a lot of the perfect straight lines, you know, like this edge here inside the center. But because there's this gap, I'll probably fill that with a little chunk, and then that straight edge will be gone. But yeah, this nice little corner piece here in the corner, and this one had a flat and a flat, so that worked great. But yeah, just put them in, and when I push them down, because some of the pieces are pretty concaved because the natural curvature of a tree, but you'll just have to put something heavy in here to keep everything down once you're done. But when you're putting them in, you kind of just shimmy them, push down and shimmy, and then you can just push along the entire piece, make sure everything is fully pushed down and contacted with as much silicone as it can be. And then for those big pieces that have that real concave shape like that, you'll have to put something heavy on it to weigh it down. And you can also, if you need some pieces, you know, with thicker, like if you don't want to weigh that down, but you want it to be held well enough, just take a little extra caulk and silicone the back of it with some thicker beads and just set it there and make sure those beads are thick enough to where they're going to be touching both the cork bark and the glass, and it's going to have full contact, you know, to be able to cement it in there. But I'll put something down on these just to keep everything where I want it. And then I'll take a lot of these little random pieces like this that seem to fit into the areas to fill all these little holes up. And like I said, anywhere where there's maybe a factory cut straight edge like that, I'll for sure get some sort of a piece and cover over that and give it a little bit more 3D texture to where it's popping out more. It's not just a perfectly flat background, even with the pieces like this. And then you can also even go one more step, like I was saying earlier. And because this whole thing's silicone in the back, once it's all done, I'll go ahead and sprinkle soil everywhere through it and shimmy it around in there. And that'll really fill in all the little pockets and stick to the silicone where it needs to be. All right, so let's keep going. We're gonna fill in those little pieces like I was saying. Probably gonna have some time-lapse action coming up. Sick. Oh, yeah, I know where that's going. Ooh. Put down the weapon.
So like I was saying here, I'm just filling in the little pieces, picking which ones I think fit best and where they should go, and I'm just sticking them there, trying them out, and then I'm going to silicone if I like it.
That piece was just sitting in there. I thought I already had it glued down. Got me. Got me good. Noise. It's like it was meant to beast. All right, so here we can see, you know, I have most of it all done now. It's a little bit of random stuff left, but I filled in a lot of these little pieces like this with some little guys that just fit into the spots nicely. And there's still some gaps, but that's gonna have the soil in it. So I'm pretty much done now. This is gonna be the most of the background. And I'm happy with that. I think it looks pretty good, you know. So just imagine it without these ugly little silicone holes, because those will be filled with soil. But I think that looks pretty nice. And that's, you know, the tank will be sitting up like this. So yes, right now it has a lot of pockets where you can see through, but they'll be filled. So not bad. And it looks pretty nice. It's different. It's not just all one big tile. I just think it helps make it look a little more real. I also like to take a lot of little cork tubes or chunks of tubes or half tubes, like the little half log hides, kind of like this cork piece was originally. But, you know, it's got a bottom that's close to the ground. Top's much more open. And I will put these pieces in here, you know, probably something like that. Somewhere in here like that, where I feel it sits nice and looks right. And then this will silicone in and it will actually be a plant pot. So then you'll have a natural plant pot that's just fill that pocket with soil and then put your plant roots in and they go from there. I like to do that in tanks like this as well, especially more arboreal tanks, you know, that you got more vertical height on them. You can put big full chunks of a cork tube cut at an angle onto the background and then have like a full size, however big of a plant pot you want, just with your cork tubes. Because cork, I would never worry about it breaking down. Cork bark takes so long to break down and decompose. Like, I have a cork tube in here that's part of my waterfall system in this, and it's been in the half submerged in water for over a year and it doesn't look like it's decayed at all. It's totally fine. So yeah, these are my favorite things because I know a lot of people will actually put little miniature plant pots, build them into the backgrounds of the tanks, and they foam around them, and that works, but I don't want the extra plastic if I don't have to have it. And I don't know, the plant's also limited then to the size of whatever that pot is that you put in there. With this, I mean, it can, you know, the roots are going to eventually spread under it and around it and behind it and through the background and all over, like the roots in this tank. But the roots are just everywhere in here. The whole background behind the cork background is just filled with roots all over the place. They don't just grow down or where you want. They're gonna grow everywhere. But yeah, it's another little touch. So I'm gonna get that going. Okay, so now the soil's all in there. I just take one of my cups that I keep in my soil bins. I have my soil already pre-made up that I like for my terrariums. And this is more of my tropical, can be totally dry too, honestly. It really doesn't matter. But if you keep it more tropical, you know, it's a quick draining, holds moisture well soil that I use. You can see it's mixed, got a lot of pumice. It's got the little clay balls too. I just mix in for extra aeration, but just a solid little layer of soil. Not a ton. I mean, it was almost 1 cup, of, like 1 full cup of this, which is actually 32-ounce cup. Filled up just so that you have a full coverage layer of the soil, because then you can just push down everywhere, and wherever you're pushing down, that soil is going to get into those pockets and be fully pressed in and then stick to the silicone, and then I'll dump this out. So I filled the tank with the soil, pressed it all in again, dumped it down. It's pretty good. There's still some spots, but I don't care. Those spots are going to be filled in. It's fully bioactive. I use different live mosses. And even if the mosses don't take and they remain dormant because they're too dry and not getting enough moisture, dry moss still looks better than having holes somewhere. So like put moss in those tiny little spots and I'll have plants growing. So those aren't going to be visible. I'm not going to see them. So now I'm going to put in this little half tube piece, which is thinner up on the top, pretty thick on the bottom. It's almost closed. So I'm going to have that at an angle, and that's going to be a natural plant pot that I use. So you can see it's pretty thin up top. It's got this deeper dish, but that angle, and that's going to be all filled with soil. Kind of where I want it. I like the lichen over here. This is kind of ugly. I have that square straight edge that I don't like. Factory cut edge. It's hard to get rid of. I think it's really the only exposed big factory cut edge showing also. So, could do something, kind of figure where this sits nicely, and kind of find a natural seat for it, where it sits naturally and where it works. So I covered it up pretty good. I goop it up, but I know where the contact edge, and I'm also kind of filling in this bottom where that didn't close all the way. So that's pretty goopy doopy. What I'm gonna do is put a little sphagnum peat moss on there. Got some really dry moss in here. Just old. Wow.
And now I'm just pressing that into place, seating it where it feels
Old
natural,
school.
where it's going to sit nice and firmly up against the cork background, and then just making sure it's in place well.
But that's absolutely perfect for this. This is so dry. Man, this stuff is dusty and, interesting. Pretty much putting it on there quite lightly. I'm not pushing in on this stuff. We also want the silicone where it's at, but I want it to be covered, so. This baggie is so full of.
So I'm just working that moss around
It's like it's
all that silicone that I added around that cork tube to keep it in place. Pressing it around all the edges, making sure it's in all the little crevices and stuff, but I'm not pushing too hard to force the silicone in.
So you guys can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just obviously adding a little bit more in on the inside edge of that, so it's filling in to give it a contact point. So I'm not covering the inside of it with moss because it doesn't matter, it's going to be full of soil. But I got a big dab of it on accident up here on the top. I'm just going to cover it. Digging that. place. I also went in and filled a little bit of those patches I was talking about with some more of this dry sphagnum that I've got. That's some old, very dry moss, but we'll see how that. So even that, like I was saying, looks much better than just the air pockets, or I mean, you know, clear pockets where you can see through the tank, even if it's dormant, dry moss, not dead, just dormant. But even if this moss doesn't have enough humidity and it's not damp enough in here for this to come out of dormancy and really start to grow green again, it still looks much better than just having those empty holes. Yeah, that thing's held on there great. And once that's bonded and fully cured, that's going to be awesome. And that's not going to go anywhere. And I'll fill that whole pocket up with my soil, and then I'll plant a little plant in there, and you'll have one that can come out. I mean, I love this idea, especially on bigger tanks. I mean, like I was saying, you can use whole cork rounds and just angle cut the back and boop, and you've got, you know, you can have a plant pot, really however big you want. Cork tube like this big, that deep, one that's this big and this deep at the angle, can get quite a lot of soil volume. I'm gonna let all this cure, and the silicone, I'm gonna take it outside and let it cure, but it really varies. Depends on the temperature and the humidity of where it's sitting to cure. If it's hot and dry, it's gonna cure within a couple days. I know they say like 24 hours. I've never found that to be true in my experience, but I'm also somewhere where it's a lot more humid and cooler. So, especially right now, it's winter here. If I don't leave this inside at room temp, like it's outside at 35 degrees, during the day 45 degrees, this is probably going to take a week or two for this silicone to fully cure and off gas and get rid of that super nasty, strong vinegar smell. It's just really potent. But you want it to fully cure anyways before you put anything in and go further. So just to give you guys a better view of it all right now as it's curing, this is, and obviously the extra moss in the bottom's not being there, but excuse me. I think that turned out pretty great. Nice background. I don't know, maybe some people think, oh, it looks exactly the same as if you just put one of those tile pieces straight in there. Maybe to some, but not to me. I can tell a difference, and maybe the camera doesn't quite do this justice, but I think when you puzzle piece them in and you have the different thicknesses and different textures, just all the different growth patterns of this natural bark kind of all mixed in, blended together, but you know, pieced up like this, it looks much better in my opinion. And still a super simple, easy cork bark background that's just siliconed in there. And then, you know, got that little tube you can see, so that's down at the bottom, that silicone gap that I filled. But yeah, doesn't look that big, but that's a couple inches by a couple inches. So that'll be a nice little pocket for soil to sit in and be a little pot, a natural plant pot. But yeah, and then the moss, as you can see in some of the areas where I filled it, looks better than seeing through. And there's still some holes through it, but that's okay. I can keep putting more moss in, and like I said, I'll put live moss in some of those too once this is actually set up and I'm spraying it down. But off to a great start. I'll see you guys on the next one.